Well, let's just jump right into some offensive coordinator stuff. So, right after we recorded last week, like a couple different things came out kind of the next day. One of those is Todd Monken, Georgia's offensive coordinator for the last couple seasons, leaving for the Baltimore Ravens job. And they promoted Mike Bobo, who has been their offensive coordinator before and was on staff, I guess, as a analyst or something like that. Um, Ashton, you're the resident Georgia fan. What was going through your mind with all of this? I know you were on record kind of before saying that you think Monken will probably stay. Obviously, that's not happening. What were your thoughts about him leaving, and then also obviously moving on to Mike Bobo being promoted?
Yeah, I thought that Monken would stay. That may have been wishful thinking. Obviously, in hindsight, it definitely was wishful thinking. Todd Monken was the highest paid coordinator in college football, number one, and he leaves. I have nothing against Todd Monken. Hey, I'm forever grateful for what he did. Monken was an NFL guy and always was, and he
Mm-hmm.
didn't enjoy the recruiting part. He didn't the whole following 15-year-old quarterbacks back on Twitter wasn't really his thing. You know what I'm saying? Like he was
Right.
more, yeah, kind of a little bit more old school, professional. Like that's kind of Monken. Um, and yeah, again, no hard feelings at all. Forever grateful. He brought us two national championships. Georgia may have led the nation in cool play calls, like
Yeah.
play calls that just like look at like wow, that looks neat.
Look at
Like
this
that
tight
just
end jet sweep. Yeah.
right, right. Like we never ran those before, and like he brought a lot of flair. I I don't want to get too upset about this. I'm trying to stay positive. My goal is just I don't need negativity here. Not in this episode. Yeah, not in this episode. But I'm just going to be honest. This sucks. He's leaving. This really sucks. He was fantastic. He was a great play caller. The job he did with Stetson Bennett was, I think, incredible. Stetson went from a kind of a game manager, yeah, kind of a little scramble, kind of a scramble guy, but like Stetson developed into a really good thrower. Like he could
Hmm.
pass, like he could just sit back and he showed it in the title game and against Ohio State. He could sit back and read a defense and throw a really good, accurate ball. And he was never that guy until the
Hmm.
last 2 years, and he kind of developed into it. So much of the credit should go to Todd Monken. Yeah, and just to kind of put a bow onto his Georgia career, he really changed that offense. It was in the Stone Age before he showed up. It really
Yeah.
was. Like it was the run pass that we always talk about. That I hate it so much when I can sit there and just call the plays. And when Monken got a hold of the offense in 2020, everything changed. He brings Georgia two championships, and then he leaves. The Ravens got a good one. Wish him nothing but the best.
Hmm.
But then you have to look at who we got. So, in a world where
By the
Clemson
way,
hires,
I'll just ask you this real quick. You said this sucks. Which sucks more, him leaving or the hire? And
I'm getting to it. I'm getting to
okay,
it.
sorry to
The
interrupt.
Todd Monken, yeah, no, I thought, okay, I'll go back and say I did think he was going to stay. It felt like the timing was a little funny with how long that he was waiting. It felt like he was trying to get maybe a little bit bigger of a deal, which he certainly deserved. But I think it was more he wanted back into the NFL. No, I don't fault him. Good, good for him. Um, yeah, so he's gone. And then Kirby announces literally like 10 minutes later that we will be promoting Mike Bobo from the offensive. He was an analyst. He came on as an
Mhm.
analyst. I, this sucks. Like this is not great. This is Kirby reclaiming control of the offense. We simply scored too many points under Todd Monken. I'm a firm believer in it. The 65 points that we put up against TCU in the championship game, Kirby was like, we're exposing my defense to far too many plays. Like we can't be doing this. You're making the rest of the team look bad. So this is Kirby reclaiming control. I I'm being a little facetious here. I know that, but yeah, this is his buddy. Like him and Bobo were college teammates. By the way, Will Muschamp, he's also like he's the co-defensive coordinator. Him and Kirby were like all three of those guys were teammates.
Mhm.
And if there's anything that we didn't like about Clemson, remember when Clemson won two championships? And then they kind of like they kind of had just like their own little camp, like an internal camp, and they didn't really hire anyone new. They didn't bring
Yeah.
in fresh blood. There was no new ideas. like that's kind of what Kirby's doing, and I don't understand it. Like none of that makes sense to me. Yeah, Munkin was the outside ideas guy. Like he's the guy that brought in the new kick to the offense, something that we didn't see before. And that's why Georgia that's why they developed as an offense. And that's why Georgia won championships. Because the defense was always good. That's the newsflash. The defense for Georgia under Kirby Smart has always been really, really good. And they may have been a little bit better than they were in previous years, but like most of the reasons why Georgia won championships was because the offense progressed and they weren't predictable. I just really hope it doesn't fall into that. It, okay, I'm going to try just to be rational. I'm going to try to ration this out. Again, I'm trying to stay positive here. The whole thing sucks, but I'm just trying to stay positive. Kirby hasn't really missed with hires, with coordinator hires, and even assistant, like just any assistant coach, like any position coach. He's hit on almost every single one of them. Coley not included. Well, yeah, we forget about the Coley years, but as coordinator, but he's hit on a lot of guys, and like you kind of have to trust that. Like that's kind of what I'm trying to go into it with is like we do have to trust this. I'm just going to read a stat here. I saw it just the other day, and it's something that just I'm trying to stay confident. Dabo Sweeney, Ryan Day, Lincoln Riley, Jimbo Fisher, Brian Kelly, Luke Fickell, and Jim Harbaugh are a combined 0-9 versus Kirby Smart. All those guys, 0-9. And that's an impressive list, right? None of those guys have ever beat him. So we do have to keep trusting in the system. It sucks. Like I think Kirby's maybe betting that football is going to kind of get back to maybe a little bit more run first, a lot of tight ends, a lot of play action stuff. You know what I mean? Like kind of how it used to be in like I don't know 2000, like the early 2000s before like the air raid took over. Maybe he's kind of betting on that and trying to get ahead of the curve. I guess that's great. It's really frustrating to see though, like just from me personally.
So I guess for those who don't know, Mike Bobo was the offensive coordinator at Georgia for like 8 years or something crazy, like for a long time.
Yeah.
And even the QB coach before then. So he coached like I'm too young to remember David Green, but he coached him, Matthew Stafford, Aaron Murray.
Yeah.
From my perspective as just kind of the outside neutral observer from a distance, it felt like to me a lot of those early 2010s Georgia teams, to me, I view those in slightly a different through a different lens than I do through the first several years of Kirby before they got Munkin. Like I felt like the first several years of Kirby, it was overly just run, pass, run, pass. I didn't necessarily view the early 2010s Georgia teams quite that way.
Fair. No, that's fair. I'm not concerned about like Bobo was actually a decent play caller at Georgia when he was there in the early like the 2010s. Yeah, you mentioned the Aaron Murray years.
Yeah.
Like he really was. Georgia statistically had a decent offense then, but I'm more concerned about just like the group think. Like it's a whole bunch of college teammates that are together and
Yeah.
You need the new ideas. You need to be challenged. You need to have guys on the staff that are trying to innovate and do new things. And Munkin was certainly that guy. Like he was kind of the mad scientist behind it all. You know what I mean? Like Georgia had the 5 stars in 2019, in 2020. They didn't win anything, you know? Like it took that innovation. It took like some creativity with the 5 stars to actually win championships. And yeah, I'm concerned that we kind of fall back. Like we fall back to that. I'll just say this. Georgia went back to back in 21 and 22. And no one's done that in the CFP. Georgia has a bit of a lead on everyone else as far as where they are right now. But I will say this, losing Todd Munkin, everyone else catches up. Everyone else caught up a little bit over the past week. So, I think Georgia takes a little step back because Munkin was simply that good. He was impressive with just the play calls and the development of the quarterback.
So there's been a lot of talk out there that Bobo has a good relationship with Dylan Raiola.
He does, yeah.
Is it worth it if you get Raiola?
No. Well, maybe. Okay. I'll say maybe. I think Munkin had a good relationship with him too. Like Munkin's not the recruiter type, but yeah, whatever. Like we always had the 5 stars. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
so what? We get another 5-star quarterback and have him in the room. I mean, that's great. but I still rather have someone that can develop Stetson into whatever he was. Like Stetson's playoff numbers are massive. Like
Hmm.
he played as well as anyone in those big games. And like that's what I want, And like, is there any 5-star that can play better than that? Like,
Yeah.
so I want the guy that can develop, yeah, develop the quarterbacks because and maybe he can. Like Bobo has developed Stafford and Murray. You already talked about that. Maybe it does work out. It still sucks. Like it's allowed to suck. Like losing
Sure.
a guy like Monken hurts. He was the number one paid coordinator in college football, and he was for a reason. He deserved that. And yeah, losing him is not fun.
Hmm. Yeah, I guess it does feel like Georgia is at a much better place to deal with his loss than they like. He's leaving their offense in a better spot than he found it. Like they can still use those creative play calls. Obviously, the hope is that they
Oh,
stay creative, um, and don't just go back to run pass like they were 3 years ago. I guess if I'm kind of the neutral fan and it's not my team, so I don't have to worry about it. But like I guess I could definitely see a path where it works out fine, just because they got that innovation from Monken. They can still hold on to that, and maybe
sure.
Bobo, being an analyst under him last year, probably learned some things from him. I would have to imagine.
Sure.
Um,
Here's the thing though, like the defense is so good and the offensive line is so good for Georgia that they can run pass their way to an SEC East championship. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
They're going to win a lot of games simply doing that, and that's my fear. Like my
Hmm.
fear is that they kind of get lulled into like the easy wins. Like we can just hammer Vanderbilt and we'll just run it, 50 times against Kentucky, and we'll run it against South Carolina. Like we're going to run it against everyone, and like yeah, and then you go up against the super talented quarterbacks, and that's where you kind of fall apart. And I really
Good
hope
being the enemy of great type of thing.
kinda, yeah, like that's my fear, I guess. We have to let it play out. Again, we do have to kind of trust Kirby reluctantly. Like at this point, it kind of bums me out that I have to trust him because I did think he was wrong doing this, but yeah, I we'll see. Like we'll have to wait and see. I think everyone else caught up to Georgia though. I think that's one thing you can take away from it. This was good for the rest of college football.